We're ready for the start. They're off.
Welcome in, everybody, to It's Official, the weekly banner and recap show where we review the previous week most weeks. But Jeff Siegel, the Breeders' Cup is coming up on Friday and Saturday, and there's no sense looking back to last week. Let's only look forward, and we're not just looking forward to the obvious of Flightline and company. How about some long shots this week?
Well, that's where the money's going to be won. If you can find one or two really tote busting type of horses, and there's lots to choose. I mean, most of these horses have credentials to at least hit the board and complete your exacta or trifecta. So, we start off, we originally handicapped trying to figure out who the contenders are, who do you like on top, who's going to be your key and single. But once you get past that, now you're looking for some price horses to knock some people out. And that's right. What we've been doing. And I know you've got a couple you like. I've got three that I'm definitely going to use. When you're betting 20-1 shots, they don't all have to win. If you get one home, that's great. So that's what we've been working on. And I think between the two of us, we've got five here that if you didn't consider them before, you probably should consider them now somewhere on your ticket. And that's the fun part about handicapping, trying to uncover these nuggets that are there to be found.
Yeah, we're going to do this schoolyard style or like at the gym for a pickup game. All the long shots are lined up along the wall, Jeff, and we just get to draft them one at a time. You get to go first. They're not in race order. They're in order so that you and I can go back and forth. But we typically take 5 topics here on It's Official. Let's get to our first. And you're up first with the first round draft pick in the long shot lottery, if you will. You think there could be a bomb in the juvenile fillies. Tell us who.
Well, this is a race in which I had a hard time even finding one on top. I mean, we're all aware of, Chocolate Gelato, and she's good. I mean, she's not, Echo Zulu from last year, but she's good. Wonder Wheel, who won the Alcibiades, I bet on her that day, and I thought she was like 6th best in the race, so yeah. She doesn't have to win. So I'm looking for an up-and-coming price horse, maybe a filly that people aren't really aware of or are not, not looking at her that closely. And I came up with this Florida filly, and we actually made her a star of a future a couple weeks back, named Atomically. She's number 8 in the program. She's 12-1. First time for Todd Pletcher after being purchased privately by Eclipse Thoroughbreds following her win in a Florida Bred Stakes at Gulfstream Park last month. And if you go back and watch the video of that race, she was in the parking lot every step of the way and still came away and won by 7. And how about this? She earned an 83 by her number, and Chocolate Gelato, when she won her race at Aqueduct in the Frizette, only earned an 83. So, I mean, why is one favored and the other one 12-1, especially when you consider Atomically has already been 2 turns. Now she figures to get better with Pletcher and the Saez. And she'd won her previous race by 7. It wasn't just a one-hit wonder type of race. I mean, and her numbers have risen with every start.
Sure.
I don't know what price she's really going to be, but Atomically at 12-1 to me is not only a long shot chance, I think she's a legit contender.
Yeah, here she was on the track this morning at Keeneland. We've got some a little bit of training video in the darkness. Todd sending his horses out early. Here she is galloping past the grandstand, which probably has no fans in it yet at that hour, but in another hour was filled up with fans looking forward to the Breeders' Cup. But Atomically, Jeff, as you mentioned, her big win down in Florida in the Florida Sire Stakes, that race went a second and then another 1.45 seconds faster than the boys division the same day. So she's obviously the best 2-year-old from Florida of any sex. And she looks like a horse who's trained a little bit in company with Chocolate Gelato over the last week or two. I think she's going to match up well in here. I think you're onto one.
I hope so. I mean, that race has already proven to be productive. And the filly that she beat, Lynx, I think she was like 4-5 in the race. So it was a real race. And again, I'm not a big ground loss guy, but she was very wide every step of the way and galloped out great. So anyway, I don't know what price she's really going to be, but if you play her in the rolling exotics, you might get closer to 12-1 than you will in the actual win pool.
All right, it's Atomically for Jeff, his first round draft pick here in our long shot lottery for the juvenile fillies on Friday. My first pick, I'm going to take you to a Saturday race. And Jeff, we've talked about this and it's official for a little while back. I've been looking for a so-so sophomore to win the dirt mile pretty much all year long. You look back in the history of this race, and when there's a brilliant miler, that horse delivers, right? The Liam's Maps, the Life is Goods, that. But when you don't have a brilliant miler, this race often goes to kind of a sophomore who's not good enough for the classic, not fast enough to sprint, one of those in-betweener types and, midway roads, horses like that. This is a year, Caleb's Posse. This is a year where I think a so-so sophomore has a shot. And I'm going with Simplification. I'm going to draft him out of the Florida ranks. He's got a great post position. The inside 4 posts in the dirt mile have a huge statistical edge at Keeneland. He's within those first 4 posts. He's going to get a good trip. And he always just seems to run his race. None spectacular, but none that you just say, boy, he can't be competitive. I've got a feeling Simplification is going to run really well, and I think he's going to be a big number. I think he's going to be upwards of 20-1 in the dirt mile, because I think horses like Cody's Wish and Laurel River are going to get bet hard. I think there's going to be those two in a big gap to the rest. Cyberknife will take a lot of money as well, so that means the long shots have to be long in this particular spot. How about Simplification? Talk me off the edge of insanity here.
Well, I wouldn't say it's insanity. I didn't use him. I'm against him, but I will say this. I think the dropping back to a mile might really help him. I mean, the difference between being a miler and a mile and an eighth mile and a quarter, whatever, can be monumental. I mean, you wouldn't think they're both, they're 2 turns, whatever, but if sometimes horses just empty out when they go a little farther than the mile. By the way, for the record, based on, not that this is going to change my handicapping, but based on the placement of the starting gate for this race, the race is actually a mile and 70 yards. They're not calling it a mile and 70 yards, but it is a mile. That gives, I think that's primarily done to give horses a much better cushion going into the clubhouse turn, a little bit longer run, so the outside horses don't get messed up too bad. But regardless of the case, I mean, you're pointing about the good post going this distance, he's going to draft into a great spot. Let's put it that way. And if there is more pace than maybe a lot of people might think there will be, and I think there's a chance that the pace is going to be pretty quick. Simplification might be in that second flight, ready to pounce, and then we'll see how good he is. But at 20-1, maybe you talk me into throwing him in somewhere.
Cyberknife's going to be what? 7-2, 4-1, maybe second, third choice in there. And Cyberknife beat him by a head in the Pennsylvania Derby. They're both last started a mile and an eighth. So why not? I mean, if you're looking for a price, maybe not to win the whole, shooting match, but if you like Laurel River or you like Cody's Wish, or even if you like Cyberknife, you're going to need a little bingo underneath to get a nice payoff in terms of your exotics in here. So I'm going to give Simplification a shot. And, we did have a little action of him on the track this morning. What a campaign, when you think about a 3-year-old who's been going since New Year's Day at the Mucho Macho Man Stakes. He won. He also won the Fountain of Youth. He was better maybe at the beginning of the year, but his speed figures, 98 last time. Bayer was a career best for him, Jeff. So this has not worn him out, this long campaign, it appears. Yeah,
apparently not. And like I say, even if he doesn't win, if he can hit the board and make your exacta or trifecta worthwhile, that's what you're looking for as well. He should run well. If he's good enough, that's why he's going to be a big price. But I think he's going to run as well as he's capable of running.
All right, your next pick in the lottery here, Jeff. We're going to go back to the Friday card. The road to the juvenile turf is going to run through whom?
You're gonna have to take Victoria Road, I think, if you want to get this done.
Right.
And he's 8-1. And I know that a lot of the play will go to Silver Knot. Silver Knot's got a little bit better time form ratings. I went back and watched the video of both of these horses, and I see where Silver Knot is pretty good. He just won a Group 3 at Newmarket on a straightaway. Nice race there. But it wasn't visually, it wasn't a wow type of performance to me. It was good, and even reading the quotes from Charles Appleby, he calls him a nice horse. He's not overly, complimentary. He's a useful type horse who does his best. He's the favorite. So that kind of got me intrigued by Aidan O'Brien's colt, Victoria Road. Now, Victoria Road, took a while to break his maiden 4 starts, but he's now won 3 in a row. And here's the key. And again, you can watch these races on YouTube if you really want, or expressbet.com if you really want to do the work, which I did in this. He broke his maiden. He comes back and he wins a listed stakes at Deauville, and then comes back and wins a group race at Chantilly. Now, here's the key. The first race, he went gate to wire, broke running, made the lead, proved uncatchable, and was challenged. Second race, he stalked. He was in the second flight and then went on with it when he was asked. Right. The last race, at a mile and an eighth, he came from stone last and had nobody beat when they swung into the final 3 5/16 of a mile at Chantilly, and he just blew everybody away. So here's a horse who's won on the lead. He's won stalking. He's won from dead last. Now he gets the fence. There's not a lot of speed drawn to his outside, so if he comes out, he's going to draft into a great spot, I think. And he can really turn it on, this colt. And even though he's had 7 starts, he is really, really improving. I think he's the second horse in this Aidan O'Brien train here, this training train we've got here. I mean, he looks like a happy horse to me, and there's no reason to think that he won't continue to improve. His time form ratings have risen with every race. I think he'll produce another forward move. He's had plenty of time mid-September. I mean, it all adds up to 8-1 with Ryan Moore riding for Aidan O'Brien. Victoria Road from the rail. He has to run a huge race, and I don't think the local contingent, the Americans, are all that great, quite frankly.
Right. And you look at Aidan O'Brien in this race, he's won it 5 times with 20 starters. So that's a great strike rate. And he's been second 4 times. So 45% of the horses he's put in the juvenile turf have run in the exacta. This one looks like a good fit. I like the rail, like you're saying, with that versatile running style. If they get out of the gate, that's always a question with the Europeans. But if this one breaks, you can be right in the race. If he doesn't break, he showed last time he can still make a move.
It's funny you bring that up because I went back and I specifically looked at the breaks in all 3 races. The first 2 times, all races he broke well, but the last time they guzzled him back for some reason, and he still produced a kick. So I would love for them to let him I don't want him guzzled back. I want him to let him run out of there, get position, save ground, sit 4th or 5th, and then at the 3/8 pole, let him roll and get what you can get. Maybe get up in time. Maybe pull a hit at a bomb type of late kick that maybe that'll be good enough.
Well, and Aidan won this race with Hit It a Bomb over this track back in 2015 at Keeneland. So a lot of stars aligning there for you with your choice there for Victoria Road in the juvenile turf. Let's go to our 4th topic this week and our 4th draft pick in the long shot lottery. Lone speed, dangerous indeed. You've heard this a million times over the years, handicapping races, Jeff, and it's a good axiom whether or not you're playing, a 7 furlong race at Charlestown on a Friday night or you're playing the Breeders' Cup Distaff this year. And I'm going against the grain in the Distaff with a filly, Society. I think, Jeff, she's absolutely loose on the lead. Nobody can run with her early. Search results may be the second most likely horse to show any kind of pace. And unless search results goes all out after her, this filly who won the Cotillion is something. She really came out of nowhere for me. And we talked about this earlier in the year. When she won the Cotillion, we're almost like, who the heck is that? Right? I mean, she rose quickly. But that's kind of what you're talking about this time of the year, right? Who's rising right now? Who's rising quickly through the ranks? I think she's going to be loose on the front end. Steve's won this race with Untappable and some others in the past. I really think Society's got a chance to upset the apple cart here because she gets that lone speed situation. Front end speed was good on the main track during the regular meet at Keeneland. I expect that it will be again Breeders' Cup week. So look, I know Nest is really good. I know Malatha's really good. I know Clariere is really good. Everybody in this race is good, but give me a pace advantage, and I'll take it every time when I think we're going to get a price. I think she's 6 or 8 to 1 in the morning line, which I completely disagree with. I think she's going to be closer to twice that number. I think she's 10, 12 to 1. And if she's 10 or 12 to 1 with that speed, sign me up.
I'm not sure she's going to be that big a price for the reasons you state. I mean, she is the lone speed. She's coming off a terrific win. She's a fillies, when they get good, a lot of times they get better. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. And I'm looking at this race, and I'm not sure anybody's going to really respect her that much. Mm-hmm. And if they let her, she's outside, but she can kind of cruise up and outside and get that lead without having to go faster than 23 and change. And then all of a sudden she hits that turn and she drops over and makes the run in. And all of a sudden the other horses are playing catch up. And if she runs back to her last race, maybe she doesn't come back. And I think the reason, I'm not sure that's going to happen, but I am saying that there are a lot of handicappers that are going to see what you see, and that while they won't take a short price on her, I don't think they'll ignore her. I think she's got a legitimate look.
And she was out pre-dawn this morning. A good-looking filly here, almost has that Appaloosa kind of look about her, or the Palomino look about her. Just a beautiful filly. She's a gun runner in a year of gun runner, right? It's curling and gun runner at this year's Breeders' Cup, and I think she's got a big shot in there. She's an upset pick. Maybe she's not a long shot pick for this segment that we're talking about, because like you said, what do you want to define a long shot as? But if you're going to beat Malathot, you're going to beat Nest, those two, and beat your older stablemate Clairiere. That's an upsetter to me. She's no better than fourth choice and maybe fifth choice in the Breeders' Cup Distaff, in a great renewal of the Distaff this year. But I like her. I think she's got a big shot in there as a pace play. Now we've got one more to go in our top 5 topics and our top 5 upset picks and long shot picks for the Breeders' Cup coming up. You've got one in the mile, Jeff, that you're looking to stick it to them with. Tell us who that might be.
Well, for the same reasons that you just explained with regards to the danger of lone speed or front-running speed, I'm taking a 20-1 shot here named Pogo. He's, again, you mentioned, inside draw going a mile, how effective it can be, Right. Now, here's Pogo, who is... He is a need to lead type. I mean, he's not as effective when he's sitting second or third. And I think his connections know that. And from the rail, they're not grabbing. I can tell you that.
Right.
They're going to send Pogo out there and try to wire the field. There are 2 other horses in the race that can run with him. Smooth Like Straight, who generally is speed. But I don't think he's going to the front, because that hasn't been working for them. Right. And I think maybe they'll sit second. And then maybe Beyond Brilliant, who is speed, but they've rated him before. He doesn't have to be in front. So in looking at this race, Pogo is the Irish bred trained by Charlie Hillson. Here's a horse that, if you look at his form, his time form ratings are every bit as good as a horse that both you and I liked, and that is the horse from Europe, Kinross. He's actually beaten Kinross. He's got time form ratings are everybody as good as Tim Ross. He's beaten him. He's run second at Kim Ross. He's not outclassed. He's coming off a really nice win at Newmarket, where that's a long run in for the final quarter of a mile. He fought off everybody. He's one of these horses. He's relentless. You put him in front, and he's really hard to get by. He's an older horse. He's run 38 6 times, and he's dead fit. He's made of steel, and I can just see Pogo getting to the front. I don't know. Maybe someone wears him down late, but he's 20-1.
Yes.
And when you're 20-1 on the front end, going long on the grass, and you got a horse that's pretty darn good, maybe every bit as good as Kinross, who's one of the favorites, count me in. At least somewhere on my ticket, number 1, Pogo.
Let's look at that race at Pogo. You said he repelled the challenges at Newmarket. Take a look for yourself.
Pogo rolls on then on the far side rail with Misty Grey, Purple Pay. Now stand side, Sacred tries to come with her run. Jumbie still there with every chance too. Pogo on the far side running rail. Sacred now starting to erode that deficit. But Pogo's as tough as you like. In great form. Brings up the 150 for William Buick this year. Pogo beats Sacred and Misty Grey.
We're back to Keeneland with the Breeders' Cup, of course, this Friday and Saturday. The last time we were at Keeneland, the Breeders' Cup Mile, Order of Australia at 73-1. I believe the second largest upset in the history of the Breeders' Cup. So why not dial up a little upset in this year's Mile at Keeneland?
Look, it's a spread race as far as I'm concerned. But all I'm asking is, if you're going to spread, you got to throw in this 20-1 shot. You just saw the race. I mean, he's a tough horse. He really is. And you give him a front end. And maybe, I don't know, maybe he'll get more pressure than he wants from Smooth Like Straight and Beyond Brilliant. But if they don't go with him, look out. Look, hey, that 3/8 pole, I know you don't get lap money in the Breeders' Cup, but he might take him a long way at a big price. A nice horse named Pogo.
You might look good second or third on a trifecta or superfecta ticket as well. Sure. Let's review our 5 topics and our 5 long shot draft picks here on this week's unique edition of It's Official. Jeff thinks there could be a bomb named Atomically in the juvenile fillies the other Todd Pletcher in there at the Chocolate Gelato. I've been looking for a so-so sophomore in this year's Dirt Mile that didn't have a standout mile speedster. I landed on Simplification with a good post position and one to look for in the exotics. The Juvenile Turf, Jeff thinks, runs through Victoria Road for trainer Aiden O'Brien at juicy 8-1 in the morning line. I've got Lone Speed. I think that's dangerous in a star-studded edition of this year's Breeders' Cup Distaff. Her name is Society, winner of the Cotillion for Steve Asmussen. And also the final pick for Jeff was Pogo, who could go to the front from the inside in the Breeders' Cup Mile and do a little repeat of Order of Australia. Jeff, we talked Order of Australia being the second longest upset in Breeders' Cup history. Now for our bonus topic this week on It's Official As We Have. I talked to you a little bit before we went on the air and said, any memories of a long shot in the Breeders' Cup? I said, 1993, our Kong at Santa Anita in your backyard. Do you have any memories of our Kong?
Yeah.
And immediately you shunned me. Tell me why.
Yeah, I remember that race, 1993. And I don't know how many horse players have a similar story. But I was alive in the pick six in that race. Mm-hmm. And as I recall, there were some good prices mingled in there. It was going to pay pretty good. Yeah. And I had like 3 horses in the race, one of which I believe was Bertrando. Mm-hmm. And I was really I won't say I was overconfident, but I was expecting to hit this race. Yeah. And Bertrando's in front, and it looks like he's going to get there. And here comes our Kong, who I didn't even know was in the race, quite frankly. I mean, I just looked at him and forget it, Didn't even know it was him. And he comes roaring by and he beats me, and I was just shocked and disappointed. I was counting my money at the 8th pole and for my pick six. And the only consolation, though, was that I had consolation tickets, 6 and 5. And so I figured out it was going to be $1,000, so not the 40 or 50 or 60 that I was expecting or hoping for. But I went to cash the ticket, and I realized, and I don't know how many of you guys have ever done this before, but I lost my ticket. Ugh. Now, I didn't know where it is. It was not in my pocket. I looked and looked and looked and looked and looked and couldn't find it. And the only consolation I had was, okay, so I just blew $1,000, which was bad enough. But can you imagine what I would have felt if I actually had hit the pick six and couldn't find the ticket? And I kind of joked about it for, a year and a half, whatever. And then somehow, some way, I found it. It was stuck between 2 of those cardboards that you fill out when you put a pick six together. They used to have those. It was stuck between them, and I had saved the cardboards because I had used them. And when I came to the cardboard, wait a minute. But the problem is the statute of limitations had run out, so I couldn't cash it because you had to cash your ticket within a year. It was like a year and a half. So, but I laughed about it and figured, okay, I just blew $1,000. I can't even imagine how it would have felt if that had been worth $50,000 and was stuck in between 2 cardboard handicapping sheets. And anyway, that's what our Kang did me. So now Kang is one of my favorite horses of all time, because otherwise I might have killed myself.
There's a couple lessons in this. One, what the hell are you doing pack ratting pick six stubs for a year and a half at your house?
I didn't know I had. I had the cards, yeah, because I had taken a bunch home with me, and I'd fill them out at home. And when I got to this one, I went, okay, here, and I said, wait a minute, there's my ticket. And then I tried to cash it, and they said, sorry, you're about 6 months too late.
And the other lesson in this is, if you bet on the app, first bet or express bet, even when you're at the track, it gets counted as an on-track wager and all that. You don't have these problems. There's no lost ticket when it comes to losing your pick six ticket. So get in on the app.
But the company didn't exist then. I didn't have that option.
we were.
I have it now.
We were almost 20 years away there back in 1993. But nice of you to share that story with us. And our Kong, for our newer fans, 133-1 when he upset the Breeders' Cup Classic that year. Jerry Bailey said he got instructions in the paddock that were in French, and he didn't understand any of them. He didn't know the horse. He put a leg up. He won the Classic at 133-1. And you mentioned, you didn't even know our Kong was in the race. It was kind of like Rich Strike winning this year's Kentucky Derby, right? It's like by the time they hit the wire, you're like, Rich Strike was even in the race, off the also eligible list. Nobody considered him at 90-1. So we will see if we have any kind of phantom finishes like that at this year's Breeders' Cup and where it might happen. Won't happen in the Classic with the field of 8 and all of those horses having some sort of credentials. I mean, Super Saver would be the obvious long shot probably in the Breeders' Cup Classic, and he's only a 2-time Jockey Club Gold Cup winner.
Yeah.
So we've got a really nice field of 8 there, Jeff, for this year's Classic. Final thought, we talked a lot of long shots on this program. Give me a little flight line, your gut feeling Tuesday of Breeders' Cup week, where he sits going into the Breeders' Cup Classic on Saturday.
He's going to sit second behind Life is Good. And he's going to Flavien Prat, who's ridden Life is Good, knows, at least I think he knows. I mean, he's imparted this opinion to John Sadler. He knows how far Life is Good can run. I mean, can be competitively run. You know, he can go a mile and a quarter if you're running him against lesser horses. But so I'm not expecting Flavien to really go after Life is Good. He's going to ride him very confidently. I'm not expecting Flavien to go after the leader until maybe not quite. I mean, maybe before the quarter pole, but not much sooner than that, because I think he feels that Life is Good is going to come back to him. And what he doesn't want to do is try to engage Life is Good when Life is Good still has something left. Because while he may go by him, it may take a little bit out of him and maybe set things up for horses that will be behind him, like Taba or Epicenter. Whereas if he can keep Life is Good, I mean, if he can keep Flightline switched off into the bridle and then go after him at the quarter pole, he'll go on by him a lot easier, and that'll prevent the closers from catching up just in case Flightline gets a little tired to the end. But that's really cutting it close. I don't think it matters what happens, how he rides him. I think he's going to win anyway. But I think you don't get too panicky if Flightline hasn't actually engaged at Life is Good until mid part of the hard turn, because I think that might be the strategy.
And this isn't about running up the score necessarily. He doesn't have to win by 19 like he did in the Pacific Classic. But if he's on his A game and he's as good as historically folks think he is, he will daylight this group, even as good as it is. Because if he's that kind of spectacular bid, that kind of secretariat at a mile and a quarter, it's going to show against any level of competition that we have in today's racing game. So much to look forward to with Flightline. Hopefully you enjoyed our look at the long shots here. Jeff and I have a 2-minute handicapping vignette each day called 2 Minutes, appropriately enough, where we look at different topics. You can check those out on social media and follow First Bet and Express Bet to get those during the course each day up through this race week. We'll have one all the way up through Friday, previewing our last minute thoughts on the Saturday card for the Breeders' Cup. And also want to remind you to go to first.com/guide. You see the web address there at the bottom, first.com/guide, and check out the digital version of the First Bet and Express Bet wager guide. No more downloads. Everything's on your platform, whether you look at it on a telephone, whether you look at it on your iPad or your tablet, or you look at it on a desktop. It all configures. Everything is customizable, and you can slide around to the different races and see what the analysts have. Almost 20 analysts, Jeff, taking part in this year's guide. Eddie Olczyk's got his thoughts in there for the Classic. We'll get updated video analysis. If you go check it out today, you're going to see new information put in later today and Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, all the way through the racing week. So be sure to check out that first digital wager guide for the Breeders' Cup. Final thoughts, my friend?
Well, I want to say this about the guide. You mentioned the 20 handicappers. We all think we're pretty prepared here, but it never hurts to hear another opinion. It really does. Someone might say something that, hey, I didn't think about that, or maybe you talked me into it, and so you can do that. And again, because there's so much information in this thing, it's like, wow, it's almost information overload. But trust me, there's lots of good stuff in there, and you never know where you're going to find a nugget that will say, okay, I never would have had that horse had I not heard this opinion or saw that video or watched this workout. If you want to make money on Breeders' Cup Day, and it's the best time to do it, you got to do the work. I mean, you got to invest the time. And it's all there. I will have analysis in text form for Friday on Saturday with my Santa Anita analysis, which you can get at xbtv.com or you can get at ExpressBet. So it's going to be there as well. I'll have my opinions. But read the guide, because I mean, put the time in, and then formulate your own opinions or follow your favorite expert. But there's serious money that could be won this week, and you give yourself the best chance to do it.
Yeah, and when you have a good opinion on, say, 3, 4, 5 divisions, but you have one where you don't have an opinion or you can't separate, that's the time to dig in and get somebody else. If you're handicapping amongst friends, it's the same way, right? I handicap with my dad or my brother, and if I have a race I like a horse, it doesn't matter what they tell me. I'm on the horse I like. But if I have a race where I'm not too sure and they like something, that's where I want to tune in and use friends and partners on my handicapping team. So we're your partners. You've got about 17 or 18 of them for Breeders' Cup coming up on Friday and Saturday. That's going to wrap up this edition of It's Official. Let's get a couple of these long shots home. When we talk to you again, it'll be on Thursday with the First Call Handicapping podcast. We usually do that on Friday, but we're moving it up a day early this week because of the Breeders' Cup. Jeff and I will get into the nuts and bolts of handicapping. Maybe we talk about an undercard pick or two on those races from Keeneland. We'll see what we shake out for you on the First Call podcast coming up on Friday. On behalf of everybody at First Technologies, my partner Jeff Siegel, I'm Jeremy Plonk. Have a great Breeders' Cup week. Go and check out the wager guide and get set for championship racing this Friday and Saturday.